My parents believed my brother when he swore I was a Navy dropout. I stood silent at my brother's seal ceremony. Then his general locked eyes with me and said, "Colonel, you're here?" The crowd froze. My father's jaw hit the floor. I learned to hold my breath underwater for 4 minutes and 37 seconds during Hell Week. That's longer than most people think is possible. Longer than the body wants to allow. You fight every instinct screaming at you to surface, to gasp, to give in to the burning in your lungs that feels like swallowing fire. Standing in the crowd at my brother's Navy SEAL graduation ceremony, I held my breath again. Not literally, but the same muscle memory kicked in, that deliberate shutdown of everything except the singular focus required to endure, to survive, to outlast the pain. The Southern California sun beat down on the rows of white folding chairs arranged on the parade ground at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. Families clustered together, proud and anxious, clutching programs and phones to capture every moment. My mother wore her best dress, the navy blue one she saved for church and special occasions. My father stood rigid in slacks and a button-down shirt, his posture military despite never having served a day himself. I stood 3 feet behind them, alone. Derek was in formation with his class, 23 men who'd survived what most couldn't imagine. The Trident ceremony is sacred in the SEAL community. Each graduate receives their Golden Eagle, Anchor, and Trident pin individually, a recognition of the transformation from ordinary sailor to naval special warfare operator. The crowd buzzes with anticipation for that moment when the pins are hammered directly onto the uniforms, pressed into the chest in a tradition that marks both accomplishment and belonging. My brother looked good in his dress whites, proud, transformed. He'd lost weight during training, his face leaner, harder. At 24, Derek had finally found something he was good at, something that gave him identity beyond being the charming younger son who drifted through college on a communications degree and dad's money. I was happy for him. I want to be clear about that. Whatever else happened, whatever he had done to me, I could still recognize the magnitude of what he'd accomplished. Buds breaks most men. The fact that Derek had survived it meant something. It meant he'd found steel in himself I'd never been sure existed. But standing there, invisible to my own parents, I also felt the familiar hollow ache that had taken up residence somewhere beneath my ribs over the past 3 years. The kind of emptiness that doesn't announce itself with drama or tears. It just sits. It waits. It becomes part of your baseline until you forget what it felt like to breathe without that weight. The ceremony began with speeches. The commanding officer spoke about honor, commitment, sacrifice, about the brotherhood being forged in this moment, about the families who'd supported these warriors through the hardest training in the military. My mother reached for my father's hand. He squeezed it, eyes fixed on Derek. I shifted my weight, felt the fabric of my civilian clothes, jeans, a simple button-down shirt, nothing remarkable, and I'd debated what to wear this morning for longer than I should have. Uniform felt wrong, felt like making a statement I wasn't ready to make. Civilian clothes felt safer, invisible, which was, I suppose, what I'd become to them anyway. The thing about family betrayal is that it doesn't usually announce itself with a bang. It's not typically one catastrophic moment of violence or revelation. More often, it's erosion. It's 1,000 small cuts. It's watching the people who are supposed to know you best choose to believe a lie because the lie is easier, more convenient, more aligned with the story they've already decided to tell about who you are. 3 years ago, Derek had come home for Thanksgiving during my second year at the Naval Academy. I was on leave, feeling good, feeling proud of where I was and what I was becoming. The academy was hard, academically, physically, emotionally, but it was exactly what I'd wanted since I was 16 and first started researching service academies. I'd worked my ass off to get appointed, turned down other scholarship offers, committed fully to a path I believed in. Derek had just graduated from Arizona State. No job prospects, no real plan. He'd been living in Dad's rental property, rent-free, while figuring things out, which mostly meant playing video games and meeting friends at bars 4 nights a week. We were different people. We'd always been different. I was the serious one, the one who set goals and met them. Derek was the social one, the easy smile, the guy who made friends effortlessly and navigated life with a kind of relaxed confidence I'd never possessed. Our parents loved him differently than they loved me. Or maybe they just loved him more easily. He fit their expectations of what a son should be. Outgoing, uncomplicated, always ready with a joke to diffuse tension. I was proud of him in my own way, even if I didn't understand his choices. Brothers don't have to be identical to care about each other, or so I'd thought. That Thanksgiving, something shifted. I still don't know exactly what triggered it. Maybe it was the way relatives asked me about the academy, the attention that came my way, the implicit comparison. Maybe it was Dad clapping me on the shoulder and saying, "This one's going places." Without meaning any harm, but creating a weight Derek felt pressing down. I didn't notice his resentment building. I should have. I was trained to observe, to read situation, to anticipate threats. But you don't expect threats from your own blood. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I got an email from my father. Short, businesslike. He'd been contacted by the Academy's administration about my academic performance and behavioral issues. He'd learned I was failing multiple classes. He'd heard about disciplinary problems. He wanted to know why I hadn't told them I was struggling, why I'd hidden it, why I was throwing away the opportunity they'd supported. I'd stared at that email for 20 minutes, reading and rereading, trying to make the words make sense. I wasn't failing anything. My GPA was 3.7. I'd had zero disciplinary issues. I was training for a spot on the Academy's boxing team and volunteering as a peer mentor for freshmen having trouble adjusting. I called home immediately. Dad's voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. "Don't lie to me, Marcus. Derek told us everything." The floor dropped out from under me. "Derek told you what exactly?" "That you've been lying to us about your performance, that you're on academic probation, that you've been written up for drinking violations and might get expelled. He said you begged him not to tell us, that you've been calling him crying, that you're falling apart there and too proud to admit it." I'd laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp bark of disbelief. "Dad, none of that is true. I can send you my transcripts right now. I can have my company officer call you. Where's Derek getting this? He's your brother. Why would he lie?" That question hung in the air between us. I didn't have an answer for it, not one that my father would accept. And I tried explaining. I offered proof, transcripts, documentation, contact information for my chain of command. My father listened with the tight silence of a man who'd already made up his mind. When I finished, he said, "Derek wouldn't make this up. He's worried about you. He said you've been acting strange, defensive, paranoid. He thinks the pressure is breaking you." "The pressure is fine. I'm doing well. Please, just call the academy. I think you need to take some time, Marcus. Figure out what you really want. If you can't handle it there, there's no shame in coming home. But stop lying to us." He hung up. I sat in my dorm room, phone in hand, trying to understand what had just happened. Derek had invented an entire fiction. He'd told our parents I was failing, struggling, on the verge of expulsion. He'd painted a picture of me as someone weak, dishonest, falling apart. And they'd believed him instantly, without question, without even bothering to verify the basic facts. I called my mother. She was gentler, but equally convinced. "Honey, we know this is hard. Your father and I have been talking, and we think maybe the military isn't the right fit for you. It's okay to admit that. We just want you to be honest with us." "Mom, I am being honest. Derek is lying. I don't know why, but he's lying." Her voice got that careful, pitying tone that made my stomach turn. "Why would your brother lie about something like this? He loves you. He's trying to help." I sent them my transcripts that night. Official documents from the academy showing my grades, my standing, everything. I sent copies of commendations from my company officer. I provided phone numbers and email addresses for people they could contact to verify everything I was saying. They never contacted anyone. My father sent back a one-line email. "These could be faked. We'll discuss this when you come home for Christmas." That's when I understood the full scope of what Derek had done. It wasn't just a lie, it was a comprehensive dismantling of my credibility, my identity, my relationship with our parents. He'd positioned himself as the concerned brother in me, as the unstable liar, who'd go so far as to forge documents rather than admit failure. Any evidence I provided became proof of my deception. Any insistence on the truth became evidence of my instability. It was a perfect trap. Christmas break was a nightmare. I came home to silent meals and worried looks. My parents treated me like I was fragile, broken, possibly dangerous in my delusion. Derek played the part of supportive brother beautifully, gentle, patient, always ready with a concerned expression when I tried to defend myself. Marcus, man, we're all just worried about you, he'd say, hand on my shoulder like a comforting weight. Nobody's judging you. We want to help. I stopped trying to convince them after the third day. There was no point. They'd chosen their narrative. I returned to Annapolis in January and threw myself into work. I stopped calling home except for obligatory check-ins. My parents interpreted my distance as evidence of my instability, which Derek would dutifully report back to them with practiced concern. The erosion continued. Derek started telling extended family. Cousins I'd grown up with began sending me worried messages. Hey man, heard you're going through some stuff. Here if you need to talk. Aunts and uncles would call my parents to express concern about Marcus's situation. Nobody called me directly to ask if any of it was true. I graduated from the academy on a sunny May morning with honors, commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. My parents didn't attend. They'd explained in a terse email that they didn't want to enable my delusion by celebrating something they weren't sure I'd actually accomplished. Derek had apparently convinced them that I'd likely forged the graduation invitation. I stood in formation with my classmates, surrounded by families crying and cheering and taking pictures. My company commander asked where my parents were. I told him they couldn't make it. He looked at me with the kind of understanding that suggested he'd seen this before. The family rejection, the kid who'd chosen a path their parents couldn't accept. But that wasn't what this was. This was something else entirely. I went to the basic school, then infantry officer course. I volunteered for every hard school, every challenging assignment. I threw myself into becoming the best officer I could be because it was the only thing I had control over. My career became my identity in a way that probably wasn't healthy, but it was also the only place where truth mattered, where performance was measured objectively, where lies couldn't survive contact with reality. And I deployed to Afghanistan with my platoon, led Marines in combat, made decisions that saved lives and decisions that still wake me up at night. I was promoted to first lieutenant, then captain ahead of my peers. I earned respect from people whose opinions actually mattered to me. And through it all, my family believed I was a dropout, a failure, someone who'd washed out and was too proud to admit it. Derek, meanwhile, had decided to join the Navy. He'd announced it at a family dinner I wasn't invited to, apparently inspired by everything that happened with Marcus, to prove that our family could produce real military service. My mother had called to tell me about it, her voice bright with hope. Maybe this will be good for him. Give him direction. You understand what that's like, right? Even if it didn't work out for you? I'd said, I'm currently a captain in the Marine Corps, Mom. She'd made a soft, sad sound, Mom. Marcus, please, this denial isn't healthy. Derek said you've been telling people you're still in. You need to face reality. I stopped answering her calls after that. Derek went to boot camp, then got selected for buds. My parents were ecstatic. Finally, a son who'd actually made it in the military. Finally, something to be proud of without the complication of lies and denial. I heard about his progress through the family grapevine, cousins who still friended me on social media, who'd post congratulations about Derek making it through Hell Week, finishing pool comp, moving through the phases of training. I watched my parents' Facebook pages fill with proud updates about their SEAL son. Nobody mentioned me except occasionally in the comments, people asking, didn't you have another son who tried military service? And my mother would respond with some version of, Marcus made a different choice. We're proud of both our boys. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't carved out something vital inside me. I made major at 29, younger than typical. I was selected for Command and Staff College, marked as someone being groomed for significant leadership. My fitness reports were stellar. I'd led Marines in combat, managed complex operations, earned a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart from wounds I barely acknowledged because they seemed minor compared to what some of my Marines had endured. I'd built a life, a good one, meaningful relationships with fellow officers and the Marines I served with, a sense of purpose that sustained me even when the family-shaped hole in my chest throbbed. But the lies Derek had told still defined me to my parents, still shaped every conversation I attempted, every email I sent that went unanswered, or was met with gentle, pitying responses about facing reality and getting help. I could have shown up in uniform at their house. Could have brought my awards, my orders, my entire military record. But the truth was, I'd stopped wanting to. The people who were supposed to believe in me had chosen not to. They'd made that choice over and over for 3 years, despite every opportunity to see the truth. At some point, proving yourself to people who've already decided you're a liar becomes its own kind of defeat. So I let it go. I stopped trying. I mourned the family I'd thought I had and moved forward with the one I'd built. My Marines, my fellow officers, the brotherhood forged in shared purpose and mutual respect. Then Derek graduated buds. The invitation came from my mother via email, forwarded from Derek. We hope you'll come, Marcus. This is a big day for Derek. It would mean a lot to him to have his brother there. We know you've had your struggles, but family is family. We'd like to move past all of this and support each other. I read that email in my office at Quantico, where I was between assignments, teaching a course on small unit leadership while awaiting orders to my next command. I read it 3 times, trying to decode what moving past all of this meant. Past Derek's lies? Past my parents' refusal to believe me? Past 3 years of being treated like a delusional failure by the people who'd raised me? I almost deleted it, almost sent back a polite refusal. But something stopped me. Maybe curiosity about what Derek had become after surviving the same kind of crucible that had shaped me. Maybe a small, stubborn hope that seeing his accomplishment would somehow create space for truth, for reconciliation, for them to finally see that I'd been telling the truth all along. Or maybe I just missed my parents enough that even the crumbs of conditional acceptance felt better than nothing. I requested leave and booked a flight to San Diego. I didn't tell them I was coming. Didn't confirm my attendance. I just showed up the morning of the ceremony, finding a spot in the back of the crowd where I could watch without forcing any interactions I wasn't ready for. My parents arrived 20 minutes before the ceremony started, dressed up and proud, scanning the crowd like they were looking for someone. Derek had probably told them I wouldn't come, had probably told them I was too bitter, too lost in my delusions to celebrate his success, and I watched them take their seats in the family section, watched my mother fuss with her program, and my father check his watch. They looked older than I remembered, smaller somehow. Or maybe I'd just grown beyond the size they'd kept me in their minds. The failed son, the embarrassing secret, the boy who couldn't hack it. The ceremony began with that particular military precision I'd grown to appreciate. Every movement intentional, every word measured. The commanding officers spoke about the legacy of naval special warfare, about the responsibility these new operators were accepting, about the trust being placed in them. Trust. I almost laughed at the word. The graduates were called forward one by one. Each received their trident from the commanding officer, while family and friends pressed forward to pin additional tridents onto their uniforms. The hammering of the pins, a physical marking of this transformation. Derek's name was called. He strode forward with the confidence of someone who'd conquered something genuinely difficult. I felt a complicated mix of emotions watching him. Pride that he'd actually done it, anger at what he'd stolen from me, sadness at the gulf between us that felt unbridgeable. My parents moved forward with the crowd of Derek's friends, ready to pin their tridents. My mother was crying, dabbing at her eyes. My father stood straight, probably wishing he'd served so this moment would carry even more weight. Derek received his trident from the CO, shook hands, smiled broadly. The crowd pressed in for the pinning. My parents got close, each holding a trident pin. Friends from Derek's class clustered around, and then a voice cut through the noise. Parade ground loud and unmistakable. Colonel Marcus Hayes, is that you back there? Everything stopped. I mean, literally. The crowd noise died like someone had hit a mute button. Heads swiveled, people parted. Walking toward me was Rear Admiral James Keller, someone I'd worked with during a joint task force operation 18 months ago in Afghanistan. He commanded special operations forces in our theater, and we'd coordinated closely on a series of operations targeting Taliban leadership. He was brilliant, demanding, and had told me after our last mission together that I had a future in joint special operations if I wanted it. I hadn't expected him to be here. Hadn't known he'd transferred stateside or that he'd be attending Derek's graduation. The Admiral stopped in front of me, hand extended, smile genuine. Colonel Hayes, didn't expect to see you here. You know one of these new SEALs? The word colonel hit the crowd like a grenade. I shook his hand, acutely aware of every eye on us. My brother, sir. Derek Hayes. Admiral Keller's eyebrows shot up. Hayes? The kid who just got his trident? That's your brother? He laughed, a booming sound. Why the hell are you hiding in the back? Get up there with your family. They must be proud as hell having two sons in special operations. The silence was absolute now. I could feel it pressing in from all sides. Confusion, shock, the weight of assumptions crumbling. I saw my father's face, saw the exact moment comprehension started to dawn, followed immediately by denial, followed by a kind of sick realization that maybe, just maybe, something wasn't adding up. My mother's hand went to her throat. Derek had gone pale, standing frozen with his fresh trident pinned to his chest. Admiral Keller, bless him, was oblivious to the drama unfolding. Marcus here is one of the finest combat leaders I've worked with, he continued, addressing the crowd now with the easy authority of senior command. Led his Marines through some hairy operations in Helmand Province. If half you new guys turn out half as good as Colonel Hayes, the teams will be in excellent shape. He turned back to me. When'd you make 06? Last I heard you were a major. 2 months ago, sir. The promotion came through just before I rotated back stateside. Outstanding. You taking a battalion? That's the plan, sir. Pending final orders. We talked for another minute. Professional shop talk. The kind of conversation I'd had 1,000 times with senior officers. Easy, comfortable, built on shared experience and mutual respect. The crowd stayed frozen. Admiral Keller finally noticed the weird tension. He glanced around, smile faltering slightly. Everything all right? Yes, sir, I said quietly. Just a family surprise. They didn't know I was coming. That wasn't exactly true, but it was close enough. The Admiral clapped me on the shoulder. Well, hell of a day for your family. 2 warriors in one household. Your parents must be bursting. He nodded to the crowd generally, then headed back toward the official party. The silence after he left was different, heavier, pregnant with questions nobody seemed ready to ask. I watched my father's face cycle through emotions, confusion, disbelief, the first dawning horror of understanding. Watched him look at me, really look at me, maybe for the first time in 3 years. Saw him take in my bearing, my haircut, the way I stood, everything that marked me as military, even in civilian clothes. My mother was crying, but differently now. Not proud tears, something else. Derek stood motionless, and if I'd wanted to, I could have ended him in that moment, could have walked forward, produced my military ID, my orders, my entire service record. Could have exposed every lie in front of everyone who mattered to him. His new SEAL brothers, his instructors, our parents, the friends who'd gathered to celebrate. Could have destroyed him the way he'd tried to destroy me. The crowd started to murmur, people putting pieces together. Someone near my parents whispered, "Did he say colonel? That's a senior officer rank." My father took a step toward me. Then another, the crowd parted. We stood facing each other, across 6 feet of California sun-baked ground. I could see him struggling, see his mind trying to reconcile 3 years of certainty with what had just happened. Marcus? His voice cracked on my name. What did he call you? Colonel. My voice was steady, calm, the same tone I used giving briefings to senior commanders. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. Been active duty since I graduated from the Naval Academy 7 years ago. My mother made a small sound, half gasp, half sob. But Derek said, my father couldn't finish the sentence. I know what Derek said. I looked past him to where my brother stood, still frozen, still pale. He's been lying to you for 3 years. About me. About everything. The words hung there, simple and devastating. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Holy shit." My father turned to look at Derek, and I saw my brother's face crumble. Saw the reality of what he'd done, what was now exposed, crash down on him. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I sent you my transcripts, I continued, speaking to my parents now, not raising my voice, not adding inflection, just stating facts. I gave you contact information for my chain of command. I offered every possible proof. You chose not to verify any of it. You chose to believe Derek instead. My mother was fully crying now, mascara running, one hand over her mouth. I graduated from the academy with honors. I've served 7 years as a Marine officer. I've deployed twice to Afghanistan. I've led Marines in combat. I've been promoted ahead of my peers. I've earned decorations for valor. And through all of it, you believed I was a dropout and a liar. My father's face had gone gray. Marcus, we didn't know. You could have known. My voice was still calm, still measured, but now there was something else underneath it. Something that had been building for 3 years. You could have made a single phone call, sent a single email, verified anything. But you didn't. You chose to believe Derek, over and over, despite every piece of evidence to the contrary. You chose him. Why would he lie about something like this? My mother's voice was desperate, pleading. Why would Derek do this to you? I looked at my brother again. He was staring at the ground now, shoulders slumped. You'd have to ask him. The ceremony had completely stopped. Everyone was watching our family drama unfold like a car crash in slow motion. The commanding officer was making his way through the crowd toward us, probably to figure out why his big moment had been derailed. I felt suddenly overwhelmingly tired. Tired of this, tired of caring, tired of the small, persistent hope I'd carried, despite everything that maybe somehow they'd see the truth and we could fix this. Because the truth was finally out, exposed by chance in an admiral's casual greeting, and it didn't feel like vindication. It felt like ash. I came here to see Derek graduate, I said, because despite everything, what he accomplished is real and difficult and worthy of respect. Buds breaks most men. He survived it. That matters. I looked at my parents, really looked at them. But I'm not the one who needs to explain anything. I'm not the one who lied, and I'm not the one who chose to believe those lies without question. My father reached for me. Marcus, please, we need to talk about this. We need to understand. No. The word came out harder than I intended. You had 3 years to understand. You had every opportunity to see the truth. You made your choice. I turned to Derek. He finally looked up, meeting my eyes. I saw shame there and fear, and something that might have been regret if I was being generous. Congratulations on earning your trident, I told him. It's a real accomplishment. Be proud of what you actually did instead of tearing down others to feel bigger. Then I walked away, just walked away, through the crowd of strangers who parted silently, past rows of white chairs, across the parade ground toward the parking lot. Behind me, I heard my mother call my name, heard my father's voice, louder now, angry maybe or desperate, heard the crowd murmur and whisper. I kept walking. I made it to my rental car before my hands started shaking. Sat in the driver's seat with the door closed, air conditioning blasting, trying to breathe through the rush of adrenaline and emotion and 3 years of suppressed rage and hurt. My phone buzzed. Text message from a number I didn't recognize. This is Admiral Keller. Just got filled in on some context. I apologize for creating a scene. If you need anything, a reference, someone to talk to, whatever, you have my number. You're a hell of an officer, and you didn't deserve whatever that was. Semper Fi, Marcus. I stared at that message for a long time. A superior officer I'd worked with for 3 months, who barely knew me, showing more immediate support and belief than my own parents had in 3 years. Another text. My mother. Marcus, please come back. We need to talk, please. Then my father. We made a mistake, a terrible mistake. Please let us explain. Then Derek, I'm sorry. 2 words. After 3 years, 2 words. I turned off my phone. I drove. No destination in mind, just drove down the coast highway with the windows down, letting the ocean wind blast through the car. I drove until the shaking stopped and my breathing evened out, and the hollow feeling in my chest settled into something I could manage. I thought about revenge fantasies I'd entertained over the years, confronting Derek publicly, exposing him to our parents with irrefutable proof, making him feel even a fraction of what he'd made me feel. But the actual moment of exposure, when it came, hadn't been satisfying. It had just been sad. Sad and exhausting and somehow hollow despite being exactly what I'd sometimes imagined. Because the damage was already done, the wound already carved deep. The truth coming out now didn't erase 3 years of my parents believing I was a liar, didn't repair the trust that had been shattered, didn't give me back the graduation they'd missed, the promotions they hadn't celebrated, the deployments they'd never acknowledged. You can't unburn a bridge. You can acknowledge it's burned. You can understand how the fire started, but the bridge is still gone. I ended up at a beach park, some random spot between Coronado and La Jolla. Sat on a bench watching surfers catch waves in the late afternoon sun. Families played in the sand. Couples walked hand in hand along the waterline. Normal people doing normal things, unburdened by the particular brand of dysfunction that had shaped my last 3 years. My phone stayed off for 2 days. I holed up in my hotel room, ordered room service, and just existed in the silence. Let myself feel everything I'd been pushing down: the anger, the hurt, the grief for a family that had never really existed the way I'd thought it did. On the third day, I turned my phone back on. 53 messages. Voicemails from my parents, texts from extended family members who'd apparently heard what happened and were reaching out with various levels of apology and confusion. Nothing more from Derek after that initial, "I'm sorry." Admiral Keller had sent another message. "Don't know the full story and don't need to. Just want you to know that the Corps sees you, values you, and you've built a hell of a career on actual merit. That matters more than whatever family drama is happening. Keep your head up, Colonel." I read through my parents' messages. They'd progressed from desperate pleas for me to come back and talk, to angry demands that I at least answer them, to confused hurt that I was ignoring them, back to desperate apologies. My mother's last message: "Marcus, I don't know what to say except that we were wrong. Terribly wrong. We believed Derek because we never imagined he'd lie about something so serious. We should have verified. We should have believed you. I can't imagine what this has felt like for you. Please, please let us try to make this right. I love you. We love you. Please." I stared at that message for a long time. The thing about apologies is that they require acceptance of consequences. My parents were sorry. I believed that. They were horrified by what they'd done, by what they'd failed to see. The evidence of their guilt was clear in every desperate message. But being sorry doesn't erase damage. It doesn't rebuild trust. It doesn't automatically restore relationships to what they were before. And more than that, I wasn't sure I wanted to go back to what we were before. Because what we were before was a family where Derek could lie about me and be instantly believed, where my character, my integrity, my entire identity could be dismissed without question, where I was so easily discarded. That told me something important about how they'd always seen me, even before Derek's lies, something I'd been too close to recognize. I drafted and deleted a dozen responses before finally settling on something simple. "I appreciate the apology. I need time to process all of this. Please respect that I'm not ready to have a conversation yet. I'll reach out when I am." My mother responded within seconds. "We understand. Take all the time you need. We love you so much. We're so sorry, so proud of everything you've accomplished. Please know that." I didn't respond to that. I reached out to Derek separately. "Private message, just between us. I need to understand why, not for forgiveness. I'm not there yet and might never be. But I need to know why you did this to me. When you're ready to tell me the truth about that, let me know." He didn't respond for 3 days. When he finally did, his message was long and rambling and obviously written through several drafts. "I don't have a good reason, that's the truth, and I was jealous of you. Always have been. You were the one who had your shit together, who knew what you wanted, who worked hard and succeeded at everything. I was the fuck-up who coasted through life on charm and dad's money. When you got into the academy, everyone was so proud. You were special. You were going to do something meaningful. And I was just me, directionless, mediocre. The disappointment everyone was too polite to acknowledge. That Thanksgiving, I watched everyone pay attention to you. Ask you about your future, your plans, your accomplishments. They asked me when I was going to get a real job, when I was going to move out of dad's rental, when I was going to grow up. I got drunk that night and I wanted to tear you down, make you smaller so I didn't feel so small by comparison. I told mom and dad that you'd called me, that you were struggling, that you were falling apart. It was supposed to be a small lie, just something to shift the attention, make them worry about you instead of being disappointed in me. But then they believed it so completely, so immediately. And it felt good, Marcus. It felt good to be the one they trusted, the one they confided in, the one who was succeeding by comparison to your failure. So I kept lying, each lie built on the last. I convinced myself it wasn't really hurting you. You had the academy, your career, your accomplishments. What did you need their approval for? I didn't think about what I was taking from you. Or I did, but I didn't let myself care, because caring would mean admitting what I was doing and stopping. And I didn't want to stop because for the first time in my life, I was the good son. Joining the Navy, going to Buds, that was about proving I could do something hard too. That I wasn't just the fuck up. I wanted to earn something real. But I never meant for you to show up at graduation. Never meant for this to blow up like it did. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know I destroyed something that can't be repaired. I know you probably hate me, and you have every right to. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that none of this was because of anything you did. You were always the better brother, the better man. And I couldn't handle being in your shadow, so tried to drag you down into mine. I'm sorry. I read that message sitting in an airport terminal, waiting for my flight back to Virginia. Read it 3 times, trying to find something in it that would make the last 3 years make sense. The truth is, it did make sense in a horrible human way. Jealousy, insecurity, the desperate need to matter. I understood those impulses, even if I'd never acted on them like Derek had. But understanding isn't the same as forgiving. In his explanation, his apology, his confession, none of it changed what he'd taken from me. I never responded to that message. The weeks after the ceremony were strange. My parents wanted to reconnect, to rebuild, to somehow make up for 3 years and a few phone calls and visits. My mother especially seemed desperate to fix things, to shower me with the pride and attention she'd denied me. But I found I didn't want it anymore. Not like this. Not as an apology or consolation prize, not because the truth had been exposed and they had no choice but to acknowledge it. Extended family reached out with messages that ranged from apologetic to defensive to weirdly congratulatory, like they deserved credit for supporting me once they learned I'd been telling the truth all along. Several people sent messages like, "We always knew you could do it," which was darkly funny considering they'd had 3 years to say that and hadn't. I responded politely and distantly to most of them. The family I'd needed had been unavailable when it mattered. The family offering support now felt like strangers performing an obligation. My actual family, my Marines, my fellow officers, the people I'd served with, those relationships stayed solid because they'd been built on shared sacrifice and mutual respect, not blood obligation or assumed loyalty. Admiral Keller became something of an informal mentor. We'd meet for coffee when our schedules allowed, talk about leadership and joint operations and the future of special operations integration. He never brought up what happened at the ceremony unless I did, but his steady presence, his belief in my abilities without needing proof or explanation, meant more than he probably knew. Derek completed SEAL qualification training and got assigned to a team. We didn't speak. I'd see occasional updates on family social media, photos of him in gear, cryptic posts about training and deployment cycles. Our parents would mention him sometimes when they called, carefully, like they were afraid bringing him up would make me hang up. It never did. I could acknowledge Derek's service without needing to have a relationship with him. They weren't mutually exclusive. My parents and I settled into a careful, distant connection. Phone calls every few weeks, polite updates about our lives. They'd mention wanting to visit, wanting to see me, wanting to really reconnect. I'd give non-committal responses and change the subject. My mother asked once, about 6 months after the ceremony, "Will you ever forgive us?" I thought about that question a lot. I don't know, Mom, maybe someday. But forgiveness isn't the same as trust, and I don't know if that's something we can rebuild. She'd cried. I'd let her. Sat on the phone listening to her sob and apologize and beg for another chance. And I'd felt, not nothing exactly, but not the crushing guilt or desperate need to comfort her that I might have felt years ago. They'd made their choice, I'd made mine. The consequences of those choices would define our relationship going forward. I took command of my battalion 6 months later. It was everything I'd worked for. Leading Marines, being responsible for their training and welfare, and readiness. Hard work, meaningful work. The kind of responsibility that kept me up at night and got me up early. That challenged every skill I developed over years of service. My parents didn't attend the change of command ceremony. I didn't invite them. My Marines were there, my fellow officers, Admiral Keller, people who'd earned the right to share that moment with me. That felt right. Derek sent a message that day. Just 4 words. "Heard about your command. Congratulations." I didn't respond. 3 years after the graduation ceremony, I got a letter in the mail. Physical letter, handwritten on plain paper. Derek's handwriting. Marcus, I'm writing this instead of sending another message because I want you to know I took time with it. That this isn't just impulse or guilt talking. I've been in therapy since the graduation incident, working through why I did what I did, trying to become someone better than the person who could do that to his brother. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't think I deserve that, and I'm not sure I ever will. But I wanted you to know that what I did to you has haunted me every day since the truth came out. Not because I got caught, because of what I took from you. The years with our parents, the celebrations you should have had, the support you deserved. I can't give that back. I can't undo the damage. But I'm trying to be the kind of man who would never do something like that again. Someone who builds others up instead of tearing them down to feel bigger. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. I'm proud to be your brother, even though I haven't earned the right to say that. And I'm sorry. Not the shallow, desperate sorry of someone who got caught. The deep, bone-level sorry of someone who understands the full weight of what they did and has to live with it. You don't have to respond to this. You don't owe me anything. I just wanted you to know. Derek. I read that letter sitting on my back porch with a beer, watching the sun set over the Virginia woods behind my house. Read it twice, then folded it carefully and set it aside. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't appreciate the apology or believe it was genuine, but because Derek's healing journey, his therapy, his growth into a better person, that was his work to do, not mine to validate or facilitate. I had my own healing to do. And it didn't require reconnecting with the brother who'd tried to destroy me or the parents who'd let him. 4 years after the ceremony, I got promoted to full colonel and took command at the regimental level. Major command, the kind of responsibility that shapes the career trajectory of hundreds of Marines and junior officers. Admiral Keller attended the ceremony. So did several of my former Marines, guys I'd led as junior officers who'd stayed in touch over the years. My closest friend from the academy flew in from his duty station overseas. The ceremony was held on a crisp autumn morning. I stood in formation as the outgoing commander passed the colors to me, officially transferring responsibility and authority. The weight of it was enormous. Not the physical flag, but everything it represented. During my speech afterward, I talked about leadership and responsibility and the sacred trust between commanders and those they lead, about how trust is built slowly through consistent action and shattered instantly by betrayal, about how the strongest units are built on mutual respect and honest communication. I didn't mention my family, didn't need to, but everything I said about leadership, about trust, about earning loyalty through consistent integrity, it was all informed by what I'd learned from their absence. My parents weren't there. I'd sent them an invitation this time, a small olive branch after years of distance. They'd RSVP'd, yes, said they wouldn't miss it for anything. They didn't show up. My mother called 3 days later with an explanation. Family emergency with my father's brother, had to fly to Florida suddenly, tried to reach me but couldn't, felt terrible about missing it. Maybe it was true. Probably it was true, but it didn't matter anymore. I'd stopped needing their validation, stopped measuring my worth by their presence or pride. I had a career I was proud of, Marines who trusted me, a life built on actual accomplishments rather than family obligation or conditional acceptance. That was enough. Derek showed up, though. I didn't see him during the ceremony. He stayed in the back, didn't approach afterward. But one of my junior officers mentioned that a Navy SEAL had been in the crowd, asked if I knew him. My brother, I'd said. Later that week, Derek sent a message. Watched your ceremony from the back. Didn't want to make things weird by approaching, just wanted to be there. Wanted you to know someone from the family showed up for you. I'm proud of you, Marcus. I know that doesn't mean much coming from me, but it's true. I read that message late at night in my office, finishing paperwork that came with the new command. Sat with it for a while, trying to figure out what I felt. Not forgiveness, not yet, and maybe never in the way he probably hoped for. But maybe the smallest crack in the wall I'd built. An acknowledgement that people can change, that growth is possible, that the person who hurt you doesn't have to be frozen in that worst moment forever. I typed a response. Thanks for coming. 3 words, not absolution, not reconciliation. Just acknowledgement that he'd made an effort, that it mattered even if it didn't fix anything. His response came immediately. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. We didn't suddenly become close, didn't start calling each other or planning family reunions, but a careful, distant dialogue opened up. Updates about our careers, occasional messages about military news or shared professional interests, the kind of surface level connection that might, over years, deepen into something more substantial, or might not. And I was okay with either outcome. My parents and I remained distant, polite. They'd call on holidays and my birthday. I'd call on theirs. We'd have careful conversations about safe topics, their retirement plans, my work, in vague, non classified terms, the weather. My mother would occasionally try to push deeper to really talk about what happened, to somehow achieve closure or reconciliation that would make her feel better about her guilt. I'd redirect those conversations gently but firmly. We can't change the past, Mom. We can only decide how to move forward. But how do we move forward if we don't address what happened? We're addressing it by acknowledging it existed and making different choices now. That's all we can do. It wasn't the emotional catharsis she wanted, but it was all I had to give. 5 years after the ceremony, I deployed again, this time commanding a Marine Expeditionary Unit in an advisory role in Syria. High-stakes work, complex political and military dynamics, the kind of assignment that demonstrated trust from senior leadership. I was at a forward operating base when I got word that my father had a heart attack. Serious but stable. He'd survived, was in ICU, prognosis uncertain. My mother called, sobbing. "Marcus, please, I know things have been difficult between us, but he's asking for you. He wants to see you. Please come home." I requested emergency leave. My superiors approved it immediately. Family emergencies take precedence, even in a combat zone. I flew home through a series of military transports and commercial connections. Arrived at the hospital in North Carolina 36 hours after getting the news. My father looked small in the hospital bed. Pale. Older than I'd let myself remember. He'd lost weight, and the various machines and IVs made him seem fragile in a way that was shocking to witness. My mother was in the corner of the room, exhausted. She stood when I entered, started to approach me, then stopped like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to hug me. I crossed to her and let her embrace me. She clung to me, crying into my shoulder. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "Thank you." My father opened his eyes, saw me. Tears immediately started running down his face. "Marcus." His voice was rough, weak. "You came." "Of course I came." I moved to his bedside. He reached for my hand. I let him take it. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything, for not believing you, for choosing Derek's lies over your truth, for missing your life for 3 years. I'm so sorry." "I know, Dad. Do you forgive me?" I sat in the chair beside his bed, still holding his hand. "I'm working on it. It's a process." He nodded, more tears falling. "I was a terrible father to you. I failed the most basic test, believing in my own son. You made a mistake, a serious one. But you're not the only person who's ever chosen the wrong thing to believe." We sat in silence for a while. My mother had moved to the other side of his bed, holding his other hand. "Derek's in Virginia," my father said eventually. "He's been calling, asking about you, wanting to know if you'd talk to him. Maybe, eventually. He's changed, Marcus. Really changed. What he did, it destroyed something in him. He's spent years trying to become someone better. That's good. That's what he should do." My father squeezed my hand. "Are we, can we be a family again?" I thought about that question carefully. We're family, Dad. We've always been family. But the shape of that family, what it looks like, how close we are, that's going to take time, years probably, maybe longer. But there's a chance. There's a chance, but it requires you understanding that I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. I've built a life that doesn't revolve around family approval, and I've found people who believe in me without needing proof. That's not going to change just because the truth came out. My mother spoke up, her voice thick with tears. "We don't want you to change. We just want to be part of your life, however that looks, whatever you're comfortable with." I stayed at the hospital for 3 days while my father stabilized and was moved out of ICU. Derek called me on the second day. I answered. "Hey." His voice was cautious. "Mom said you're in town. I'm about 2 hours away. Would you be willing to see me? Just for coffee or something? No pressure. I'd like to see you. I hesitated. Yeah, okay. We met at a diner halfway between the hospital and his base. He showed up in civilian clothes, looking fit and professional, his hair short like mine, both of us marked by the particular bearing military service creates. We sat across from each other in a booth, ordered coffee, sat in awkward silence. You look good, Derek said finally. Command suits you. Thanks, you look good too. Life in the team's treating you well? Yeah, it's hard work, but good work. Meaningful. More silence. Marcus, I don't know what to say except I'm sorry, again, still, always. I nodded. I got your letter and your other messages over the years. I didn't know if you'd read them. I read them. And? And I appreciate the apology. I believe you're sincere. I believe you've worked on yourself and changed. But, but that doesn't automatically repair what was broken. Trust, relationships, family, those things take time to rebuild, if they can be rebuilt at all. Derek nodded, looking down at his coffee. I don't expect us to just go back to being brothers like nothing happened. I know I destroyed that. I want you to know I'm here if you ever want to try. We talked for an hour, carefully. Two professionals discussing their careers, their experiences, the shared language of military service, creating common ground even as the history between us loomed large. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a start. Over the following months, as my father recovered and I continued my deployment cycle, something shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way that fixed everything, but enough to create space for possibility. Derek and I started messaging more regularly. Professional stuff mostly, comparing notes on training methodologies, discussing tactical problems. The kind of shop talk that had nothing to do with our history. My parents and I video called more often. Real conversations sometimes, not just polite updates. My mother told me about her grief over missing my life, her regret, her desperate hope that we could find our way back to each other. My father talked about his own failures as a parent, his struggle to understand how he'd been so blind. I listened. Didn't offer easy forgiveness, but didn't shut them out entirely either. The truth is, healing from family betrayal doesn't follow a clean arc. There's no moment of catharsis where everything is fixed and relationships are restored. It's messy and nonlinear, and sometimes you take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. But slowly, painfully, something new started to grow. Not the family we'd been, that was gone, shattered by lies and the choice to believe them. But maybe a different family. One built on harder truths and clearer boundaries and realistic expectations. I'll never forget what they chose to believe about me. The years they missed, the support they withheld. That's part of my story now, part of what shaped me. But I'm learning, slowly, that people can hold multiple truths at once. That the parents who failed me catastrophically can also be people who love me and regret their failures. That the brother who tried to destroy me can also become someone better, someone worthy of a second chance. I'm not there yet, might never fully get there, but I'm not closed to the possibility anymore. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Acknowledge the damage, work on the healing, and stay open to the chance that people can change, that families can rebuild on new foundations, that trust can be earned again even after it's been shattered. Or maybe not. Time will tell. For now, I focus on what I can control: my Marines, my command, my career, my own integrity. I build my life on solid ground, accomplishments earned through effort, relationships built on mutual respect, trust given to those who've demonstrated they deserve it. Everything else is secondary. My family wants back in, wants to be part of my life again, wants to celebrate my successes and support me and somehow make up for years of absence. I'm letting them try, carefully, with clear boundaries and realistic expectations. But I'm not waiting for their approval anymore, not building my identity on their pride or validation. I learned to hold my breath for 4 minutes and 37 seconds during Hell Week. I learned to endure pain, to outlast doubt, to survive things most people can't imagine. I learned to survive my family's betrayal too, and maybe eventually I'll learn to do more than survive it. But that's a different journey, one that doesn't have a clear timeline or guaranteed outcome. For now, I breathe, I lead, I serve, I build my life on foundations I trust. Everything else is just noise.